This is Ian Lamont. I've been an independent publisher on Amazon for more than 10 years. And in fact, you're looking at the Amazon store page I have for my book brand. Today, I'm going to be talking about 5 things most people don't know about running an independent publishing business. If this video helps, please take a moment to like it and subscribe, and let's get started. So, the first thing that many people don't understand about independent publishing businesses is that most sales for most publishers, but not all, come through Amazon. There's a couple reasons why this is. Part of it relates to the nature of Amazon itself, and the other relates to the nature of the other bookstores that are available for people to sell their books, as well as things like a website. So when I say other bookstores, I'm talking about not just Barnes and Noble, but something like Hudson stores or shops, which you see in airports all over the place, and a lot of books go through there, or even something like Costco or Walmart, which will have a book section. So the nature of the book business, the nature of Amazon, and also the nature of shopping on the web. So my company, I do have websites to sell my books, but of all these different options, all these different ways I can sell books, the website is just a fraction of the total sales that I get through Amazon. And unfortunately, a lot of these other retail book selling opportunities, they're just not that good. And let's start with the reasons why something like Hudson News or Barnes and Noble is not a good option for most independent publishers. And the reason is that these companies, they don't even want to deal with you unless you have a distributor. A distributor is a company which will help you kind of get your books onto retail shelves. They take a cut of every book that's sold, and you have to apply to work with a distributor. And then the other thing with distributors is that they need a long lead time. Like they say that like your book should be ready, 8 months before it sells, and in order for the distributors buyers to talk to someone, say at Hudson or Costco, to try to get the book into the store. And then the other thing is that the distributors are usually representing hundreds or thousands of other publishers as well. So you don't get a lot of time with them. Something like Hudson or Barnes and Noble, they don't want to deal with independent publishers one-on-one. They just almost never wanted to deal with that stuff unless there's a way for your books to get into their stores and be returned if they don't sell, plus other considerations like marketing and whatnot. So for this reason, unfortunately, these outlets for selling books, these retail outlets, aren't a realistic option for most independent booksellers. Similarly, while it's easy for me to set up a website for my books, and I do that, it's very hard to get people to come to the website and convert them to buyers. Like you can run Facebook advertising and things like that to drive people to your site, but only a small percentage of them will convert to a buyer. And they need to see certain signals that the book looks legitimate, that the reviews look okay, and other aspects like that. If you go to like I make my book also available on other online platforms, the ebook like Apple, so you can buy an Apple book of this particular book, Social Security in 30 Minutes by author Emily Pogue. But I don't really get many sales through Apple, just to be completely frank and upfront about that. My Apple sales and Google Play sales and online other, Kobo and these other online retailers that sell EPUBs or ebooks, I only get a fraction of the total sales on these platforms compared to Amazon. So let's talk a little bit about Amazon and why it's such a big deal for independent publishers. So one thing is that Amazon, they have tens, if not hundreds of millions of customers in most countries in which they operate. I'm saying hundreds of millions because I think by now in the United States, they probably have close to maybe even 200 million people who can purchase something through Amazon. So that makes it an extremely attractive option for people who are selling anything. And I don't only sell books on Amazon, I sell other things too, and I'll get into that in a little bit. The other thing is that Amazon makes it easy for people to set up a detail page for your book and then just make it available to sell. And there's a couple programs to do this. I'm using 2 programs. One of them is called Amazon KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. The other one is called Amazon Advantage. I use those for these printed what I call cheat sheets. But these are mechanisms by which I can get books into Amazon's warehouse, whether physical books as well as the ebook edition, and then sell them on Amazon. Amazon makes it relatively easy to do that. With lots of caveats, some things don't work that well. It also makes it easy for people to leave reviews, and that helps sellers make a decision about whether they want to buy a book. Like Social Security in 30 minutes, I had 18 reviews for this particular title. You can see other ones have a lot more than that. On my website, sometimes people do leave reviews, but it's kind of clunky. People don't want to log in or leave their name or something like that. So it's not really a realistic option in many cases. I sell another type of product on another website, and I do get reviews for that occasionally, but the number of reviews I get on my own websites compared to Amazon is, it's probably 2 or 3% or something like that. So my Amazon storefront, you can see I have dozens or hundreds of reviews on many of my more popular titles, and it's a lot less on my own websites for that. So Amazon has really made it easy for customers and also for publishers to sell. And because it's so difficult on other platforms, whether it's a website like a Shopify website or trying to sell through another retail outlet like Costco or Barnes and Noble or Hudson News, for that reason, a lot of independent publishers, they stick with Amazon. So that's the first thing that most people don't understand about independent publishing, but that's just the reality of the business as of 2024. And actually, this was even true 10 years ago when I got started too. One time I remember going into Barnes and Noble near my home and trying to talk to the manager there about getting my book in. And you could see she wasn't meeting my eye. She clearly didn't want to deal with me at all. And it was just basically a dead end there. And I realized at that point that, unless I could find a distributor, and I didn't even want to work with a distributor I didn't want to give them a cut. I didn't want to deal with the returns. I was like, okay, I'm just not going to even try to work that angle because I just don't think it's realistic for my business. So, second thing people need to understand about running a book publishing business and as an independent publisher in 2024 is it's very difficult for independent publishers to pay full-time staff unless they have a really strong catalog or have another income source for the business. So let's break that down a little bit. I'm going to show you actually something I haven't shown many people, but I think it's worth taking a look at. So my business is bootstrapped. That means I didn't take investment capital. I just basically funded everything just from sales of books, starting the very beginning. Like the first book I launched, Dropbox in 30 Minutes in 2012 at the lower left corner here, like that, I just started to sell some on Amazon through the KDP program, totally DIY. It was just enough to start buying other things like pay a graphic designer I knew to design a new cover or hire a lawyer to draw up my first author contracts. So it kind of built from there. I don't show what the value of each one of these income years is, but let's just say that this, until I got to about this point, it wasn't enough to pay myself like what I consider to be like a realistic salary for someone in the publishing industry. Like it took a long time to get to that level. And as you can see from this indicator right here, like around 2017, I almost said this is just not working out as an independent publisher. I can do this on the side, but I can't do it as a full-time thing. And it's impossible for me to even hire full-time staff until I reached other full-time staff until I reached this point here in 2020. That, by the way, is when the pandemic took place, and that ties into the whole story as well. So I was bootstrapping everything. And, at first I tried to do a lot of stuff DIY, like I even designed my own cover. It just looked terrible. And I realized I needed to hire, someone who knew what they were doing. But because my business just didn't have a lot of revenue, it's impossible for me to take on someone full-time, like a graphic designer full-time. I just couldn't do that. So I had to, outsource that. Similarly with legal. Like I don't even think many larger independent publishers have an on-staff lawyer. That's something that they need to outsource. It's different for the big publishers in New York City, or in the industry I used to work in, the magazine publishing and newspapers. They might have like in-house counsel or something like that. But realistically, for most independent publishers, it's impossible to hire full-time staff for many of the positions. Not all, but many of them. So you outsource it to people who are competent, who know what they're doing, and you pay them a fair rate, of course. So they're independent contractors or they have their own business. So another example here, let's go back to the Amazon store here. Like these products right here, I work with a local printer to print these up. There's no way that I could realistically find a space to have a printing shop, get the right equipment, hire the right people to run the printing equipment and order paper and deal with ink and fine tuning and working with big orders just for the business that I have, because I sell tens of thousands of these things every year, but it's just not enough to have full-time staff and operating a print shop. So I just work with a very talented local print shop located just outside of Boston to do that particular business. And I think that's natural for many independent publishers. Now, I should say that that some independent publishers do have full-time staff, and they pay full-time staff, and that's usually on the strength of a very strong catalog. Like they have multiple bestsellers, or they have a really good and long back catalog. Like let's say that they're an independent textbook publisher, so they know they can depend on sales and steady sales for many years going forward, and that enables them to hire full-time staff. So that's usually editorial staff. Sometimes it's other type of staff as well. Editorial, I include graphic designers in that particular pool. But for a lot of smaller independent publishers, it's just not realistic because they just don't have the strong catalog, or they don't have any bestsellers, so they can't do that. The other situation for independent publishers to have full-time staff is if they have another product line that's doing well, or another side business. So what I've seen some independent publishers doing in recent years is actually they're operating like a services business on the side, or they start something called hybrid publishing. And I'm not going to get into what hybrid publishing is right now, but if you're interested, just go to the Independent Book Publishers Association and search for hybrid publishing, and you can see the guidelines that they have. In my particular case, I did hire a full-time employee after I was in business for about 7 years or something, and that's only when I got a huge bump in sales for a certain product line that wasn't books. So I sell two types of things on Amazon. One of them is books and that related line called cheat sheets. And the second thing that I sell is a specialty product for people who do genealogy. The genealogy business is actually what really sustains my company right now and enables me to have another employee. But until I had that big pandemic bump, I wasn't able to hire another full-time employee. Even now, even though I do have a full-time employee, and she's working exclusively on shipping and receiving types of things, for the other things that I do. And to give you one example, like here is a proof of a book that we're just about to put out right now. It's Social Security in 30 minutes. This is this is like almost the best proof that we have. So I had a couple different people working on this particular book at several different stages. So manuscript review, I had another proofreader working on it. Of course, the author wrote the original manuscript like 5 years ago. And then I have a professional graphic designer who's handling the print layout. There's a separate designer who's going to be doing the EPUB layout. And these are all freelance things that I pay for. My company pays for to basically operate the business. I can't do stuff like laying out a professional quality book right now. I can't do anything like cover design. Things like some things I can do, like for instance, let's see if we can zoom in a little bit here. Like, so the Library of Congress control number, yes, I applied for that on my own. The ISBNs that you see listed here, that's something that I also obtained. It's a bureaucratic process through Bowker, and I have to pay for that. Things like the stock images. I have a company called Deposit Photos where I basically license the photos to use for the book. A couple other things are like public source types of information, for instance, from the Social Security Administration. But basically, I'm working with a lot of seasoned professionals on other aspects of publishing a book. And I think that's the same for many other independent publishers as well. They find independent contractors to work with because they just can't, it's not realistic for them to have a full-time employee to do all that stuff. Unless, as I said before, they have a really strong catalog or they have another income source for the business. Okay. Number 3, independent publishers depend heavily on other businesses and independent contractors, from attorneys to printers. And I already went into that particular aspect, and I'm not going to go over that again. Number 4, by necessity, independent publishing is often a part-time side gig or passion project for the founders. That wasn't the case for me when I got started, but I know that lots of other independent publishers, like they're doing this not because they think it's going to be a super successful business and they're going to make a lot of money, but because they love books. And you can go on Amazon and find books. Some are self-published, some are independently published. Some may actually be published by a large company, but they didn't do that well. The people who created those books, even though they're not able to make a living from it, they would still do it. They still do it. They're so dedicated to the idea of publishing, and they love books so much. They love creating great books that they'll stick with it even though it's not able to sustain them. Oftentimes it's a side gig. So they're doing something else in order to, like for instance, they work at a bank during the weekday, and then they publish their book series on the weekend or at night, or they write their romance novel at night. That's perfectly fine to do that. It's just a different way of doing this type of business. It's, and I say business, but as I said, also indicated, sometimes it's a passion project. Literally, they love romance novels or science fiction or local history in Alaska, and there's no way you can they'll stop, even though it's not financially successful, even though it doesn't logically make sense to be spending hundreds of hours publishing a new book and not selling enough copies. It just doesn't make financial sense, but they'll still do it anyway. So you just have to understand that it's often a part-time side gig or a passion project for the founders, and they'll work at it for years because they love publishing. Now, the final thing I'd like to say, number 5, this is very important for anyone who's getting interested in publishing, because some of the things I've just told you may seem to be a little bit off-putting or a little bit negative. But through perseverance, improving your books, finding an audience, upping your marketing and sales game, and sometimes a little luck or unexpected opportunity, founders of independent publishing companies can turn their startup publishing venture into sustainable businesses. It doesn't happen all the time, but I've seen lots of cases where people have just worked at it. They've tried different things. They find an unusual opportunity, and I'll show you one example on here. So for me, as I told you, like I almost gave up around this period, 2017, 2018. I'd published maybe about 20 books by that point. They were selling okay, but just it wasn't generating realistic income for me to support myself. And I started telling people in my network, like, I don't think I can keep this up. I have to find like a real full-time job. And one of the things that was pressing on me was, I have 2 kids. I had 2 kids who were in middle school and high school at the time. I was thinking, geez, how am I going to pay for college for these guys? So I was like, I'm about to bail out of this, or just do it as like a part-time thing, a passion project, because I just can't make enough money at it. And then right around that time, I discovered I was doing all kinds of experiments, and some of them failed. I won't get into what these were. Actually, I'll just briefly say, PPR was a tech newsletter. Friend Forms was a type of stationery for people who own pets, and then Note Genie was a type of notebook line. But the other experiment that I tried that really worked was kind of a side project to one of the books, Genealogy Basics in 30 Minutes. And I created like a line of stationery to accompany the book, and I put it on Amazon. I didn't put it on this particular page, but I had it elsewhere on Amazon. And all of a sudden, people searching for genealogy charts were able to find my books. Actually, let's take a look right now. I can show you what it looks like, because it still works even today. Genealogy supplies. Let's see if it comes up. Yeah, this is my company right here. I sell these charts right here. So this suddenly exploded. And I thought this would just be like kind of, maybe if 10 people buy the genealogy book that I'm selling, 1 person will buy the charts. And actually it turned out to be the other way around. So I found this opportunity, and it really started to take off. I started to create other types of genealogy charts, and it just worked out really well. I'm still a book publisher. It's maybe, I'd say 20%, maybe 25% of the revenue for my company. But the other line that I have is an even bigger one. And then importantly, I should say that, I'm always trying to develop other lines of business that can kind of help me grow. You can see that, things went up in 2021. Like 2021 was a banner year. The following year was just a disaster as Facebook advertising ceased to really help me out for my Shopify stores. But anyways, there's ups and downs in this business, but I think my business is strong enough to kind of keep on going for another 10 years. Now, there's a couple flies in the ointment potentially. One of them is if something happens to Amazon, or the nightmare scenario for anyone who's an Amazon seller or publisher on Amazon is they shut down your account, like an automated shutdown, and there's no recourse to get back. So that's always kind of hanging in the back of my mind. Like, what would I do if that happened? I do have sales for the genealogy stuff through my Shopify store, which is important. And also, I'm working on other businesses. Like I have 2 YouTube channels that generate a little bit of income. And then also I'm trying to grow my consulting business as well, although that's still relatively small. But that's kind of the ins and outs of running an independent publishing business. As an independent publisher, I publish books. I've done it for more than 10 years. I'll probably be doing it for the book part of it, at least for another at least 5 years, because there's some books that I want to launch again. But this is basically something that I'm going to be doing for a long time, and there is hope. It's hard work, certainly. You have to be kind of dedicated to the craft. You have to try to improve your game all the time, but it works out for some independent publishers, and I'm hoping that some people listening to this can maybe take a chance. But in any case, for more information about the different books that I sell, go to in30minutes.com. Let me just show you the websites here. So this is the in30minutes.com or in30minutes.biz. You can see all the books that we publish. And then if you go to leanmedia.org, that's my consulting website, click on blog and then search for book, and you'll see lots of different blog posts that I've had about the publishing industry. And like I said, I've been doing this for more than 10 years. So by this point, I have some opinions and I have some insights. I just like to share them for free. And you can just look it up on the website, or you can watch any of the videos right now for free on my YouTube channel. Just subscribe or like it. So anyways, I hope that helps, and I'll talk to you next time.